sound barrier. Awesome. How are you? Where are you located, Lydia?
I'm in Katy.
Okay.
Yeah.
And where's Katie at? We're, and I think I hear them from football, like that they're very big, like strong powerhouse. But I don't know where is it at.
We're west of Houston,
Okay.
about 25 miles outside of the center of Houston, but we're big in Houston, ETJ, right? So.
Okay, awesome. Y Miguel, ¿dónde estás tú?
I am currently in Austin. I live here. I just moved back. I went to school here, but I'm kind of close from where Lydia's from. I grew up in Stafford, Texas. It's a really small suburb nestled in between Sugar Land and Missouri City. So we usually get overshadowed, but we're there, we're loud, and we're proud.
Hey, I like to hear that. That's a Texas thing. We do it big.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Everybody, thank you for tuning in. We'll be getting started at 6:05. Right now, we're just doing some small talk, getting to know each other a little bit better. Just stay tuned. We'll be at 6:05. Yeah, I was gonna do some jokes, but I don't think I'm funny enough. I'm just funny looking.
I think my friends made me laugh pretty well right before this call because I was just giving them like the update on my pre-public speaking nerves, and they said, "Don't worry, you'll screw up," and it actually made me laugh. And I was like, you know what? I think I feel better now. This is exactly like the kind of humor I needed.
Right on. Yeah, definitely. Laughing takes those nerves away.
Definitely. And good.
And this cool thing, it's a practice because now there is a lot of people on the other end of the line, but you don't get to see those eyes, right? Because I think that's what makes people the most nervous is when those eyes are just locked on and just looking at you, right? They're like, oh, now I can't mess up. But this time, I think it's a lot simpler because I only have four eyes that I gotta entertain.
It's a lot different in a COVID-19 reality.
Yeah, that's the positive side, right? And then there's the other side that you can't tell how people are responding.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so you don't know if your message is being effective or not. And I know I do a lot of praying along the way that it is, right?
Oh, we're with you right there too.
Yeah, one of the pros of being
like
in person. Yeah, that's definitely being able to read the room and understand like whether the message is being delivered well, whether you need to change it up a bit. So that's one aspect that I think I definitely miss in person wise. But I mean, I could go on a list of things that I miss being able to do in person.
True.
Me too.
That's true. The thing I don't miss is having to drive to a location.
Yes.
Right? Especially in Houston traffic.
Yes.
That's really awful, right?
Right.
So this makes it convenient from that perspective.
Definitely. I just got out of work too, so I didn't even get to make it all the way home. I'm only halfway. so I was like, you know what? Let me stop in downtown and make it a good view in the back, right? But again, I didn't find nothing. I didn't find a good background picture.
It's a nice environment for you to be in too, right?
It's nice weather. It's really cloudy in Austin, so it's good to see some sun out there.
Yeah, we ain't supposed to get the storm till tomorrow.
Mm.
Well, we had it yesterday, and boy, that wind was something.
I feel it right now. All right, cool. It's 6:05. I did tell everybody I was gonna get started. Thank y'all for tuning in. And real quick, I am going to give you a little quick introduction about myself. My name is Fernando. I'm located in Dallas, and I go to the University of North Texas. I know Lydia is big from Denton because she's from TWU, but I'll let you talk about that in a little bit when we get to introduce you, one of our other guests from Katy. And I am also a census ambassador. I helped, make a lot of phone calls, make sure that we progressively got out and got people involved in, and making sure that they got counted, because it's something very important that I think as Latinos that we don't really talk about in our at least in my household or in other households, and in our community, that it's a political power that we haven't yet to understand. But hey, thanks to first generation students and those leaders that are out in the streets helping us, guide us, and letting us know how much political power we actually do have. And so I think that that's something I love, to get involved with the community. I love to, again, I wish we could be out right now, knocking on doors, talking to people, and seeing some pretty smiles, because our gente está muy bella, ¿verdad? And so again, now, I want to get the beauty of it. Now, not only our beauty, but also the power out of our beauty, and how we, as a future minority majority, if that makes any sense, right? Soon to be majority, are able to impact our laws, our state, our counties, and and the whole country, right? Just especially in the climate that we're in right now. I think it would make a big positive impact if we're able to come together, able to make political power change and persuade in a different way, and we can show the world that we have so much to offer. Um, Now with that, I would like to introduce Lydia. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit more, please? Let us know where you're from. And
So I'm the great grandmother in the group. I have 8 grandkids, 22 grandchildren, and my husband and I, we raised 7 children, right? So, like I said, I'm the great grandmother in the group. I was born in Del Rio, Texas, a border town, raised there. As you mentioned, I went to Denton, to Texas Women's University, got 2 degrees there. Moved to Galveston, where I directed bilingual education for a few years. And where we had an extraordinary amount of people from different languages. I think at one time we counted 140 different languages on the island.
wow.
And this was at the height of the civil rights issues of presenting education in the language that the student understood, or at least provide English as a second language. So that was a fascinating period to be in. Now I am working to end gerrymandering in our state. And we're going to be talking about how that comes from the census and it impacts every single one of us in our everyday lives.
Mhm.
I agree. I agree. And gerrymandering is something we don't really get to talk about. Not even in our like social science classes, right? It's something that we just briefly go over it, and you're like, "What? All right." You have to do your own research to know more about that. And thank you for being here and getting us educated for that, right? All right. And I'd like to thank you for that, Lydia. And I'd like to introduce Miguel. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Miguel Rivera. I guess to give a bit of background info, I was born in Mexico in a small town, or a small village really, in El Estado de Mexico, called Bejucos. And at a really young age, moved to the Houston area. I grew up in Stafford. I like repping Stafford because we are frequently overlooked, but we are there. And I lived there my whole life, went through a K through 12 school district and met all of my friends there. My parents still live there. And at 18, I moved to Austin to study at UT Austin, where I started off in business and ended up with a history degree. And I moved back to Houston a bit to work, and now I'm currently the Redistricting Outreach Fellow at the Texas Civil Rights Project.
That's awesome. My mom is from El Estado de Mexico too.
Oh, really? That's so cool.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Cool. All right. And we do have a little section where we're gonna give Miguel the opportunity to explain a little bit more of redistricting. Just because it's just like gerrymandering. We don't talk about it as much in our community, or even again in our history classes, right? The floor is yours, Miguel, and we hope to learn a lot.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So I know I sent in a few slides. So, oh, I see them. Awesome. So let's see. I'll start off in the first slide with what is redistricting and why do we do it? And I guess I would just preface this with redistricting sounds like a super loaded political term, but it's not as heavy as it's perceived to be. It's just something that happens in our country every 10 years right after the census, which is going on right now. So why do we do it? Most of you guys may know that we are a representative democracy. So in order to achieve this, we need to make sure that each representative represents a roughly equal number of people. For example, a US congressperson currently has about 710,000 people in their district. And that's kind of true across the country, where they make like rough estimates to make sure that that's the truth. What the census does is that every year it counts, or every 10 years, it counts all the people in the country and even those who are citizens in different countries, and divides up that population into the existing 435 US House members, and divides those members and those districts up based off of the state's proportional population. Population in the US is consistently growing, and there's also a lot of internal migration between states. Like we've heard news stories about the Rust Belt having a declining population in states like Georgia, Colorado, Arizona, and Texas, seeing huge growth in population. In fact, Texas saw an estimated growth of about 4 million people since 2010. That's like about this entire population of the state of Oklahoma just coming into Texas within 10 years. So basically, that means that congressionally, we're projected to get maybe 3 new districts within Texas. So we're gonna have to redraw that into the 36 that already exist. Internally, we have our own state legislature, and they follow a very similar process where we have our state Senate districts, our state House districts, state Board of Education districts. And because our urban centers are growing so fast, I know Austin is talked about for being such a fast growing city percentage-wise, but Houston has grown in bounds by like pure numbers. And this needs to be reflected in the new districts that we're going to be drawing. Other huge population centers like DFW, San Antonio, the Rio Grande Valley also need to be taken into consideration with new population growth. So in that way, redistricting goes basically hand in hand with the census. If I could get the next slide. So what's so bad about redistricting? Theoretically speaking, redistricting is a pretty neutral term and process. It's just something that's going to happen because of how we're set up politically. But it's gerrymandering that's the problem, and gerrymandering that we need to identify as the enemy in this process. And in Texas, gerrymandering is so prevalent that it's hard for us to imagine our state without it. Next slide, please. Oh, that slide actually. So the term gerrymandering was actually coined back in 1812 when a dude named Elbridge Gerry, who was governor of Massachusetts at the time, signed a bill that created state Senate districts. And people and his opponents couldn't help but notice how some of the districts were weirdly distorted or oddly shaped. And then they highlighted one specific district that was shaped kind of like a salamander. And so they called it a gerrymander to make fun of Governor Gerry's role in manipulating district lines for the benefit of his party. The term gerrymander evolved into the term gerrymander and the process of gerrymandering that exists today. So it has very much been a part of our electoral process. Gerrymandering kind of took on a heightened sense with the civil rights movement in the 60s and with the passage of the Voting Rights Act in 1965. So the Voting Rights Act enshrined the people with specific voting protections and specifically highlighted protections for Black communities and other minority communities that were facing hurdles not faced by their white counterparts. So this included a protection against racial gerrymandering. The Voting Rights Act gave the federal government power to decide whether the districts that the states had created were fair or whether they were intentionally racially discriminating against Black and Brown communities, and then would force them to revisit these districts and redraw them if necessary. So since the Voting Rights Act was passed in 1965, Texas was found to have intentionally drawn racially discriminatory maps every single cycle. So that's 1970, 1980, or the years right after the census, 1971, 1981, 1991. So this is something that Texas has done and continues to do. A big problem with redistricting in the present day is that in 2013, a very important part of the Voting Rights Act was cut out that basically allowed the federal government to step in and say, hey, these districts are unfair to the point where it's illegal. So that part isn't a part, or that part doesn't exist anymore. And for the first time, Texas is set to redistrict without that protection, that crucial protection from the Voting Rights Act. So that leaves everyday Texans like me, Fernando, Lydia, to step up and keep our government accountable and tell them that we aren't going to stand by and let them racially discriminate against us and dilute the power of the people in the process. Organizations have come together, and one specifically, Fair Maps Texas, which is a coalition of different community and civil rights organizations, have banded together and fought for public input hearings in the redistricting process, which basically allowed Texans to go up to the committee who's later going to draw these districts and explain how their communities look, how they've been gerrymandered in the past, and what they expect from these new maps. But because of COVID-19, the committee has stopped holding these hearings since March, and as of now has not publicly announced when they will resume these hearings. This is pretty scary because public input is one important way, it's one key way of ensuring a fair and transparent process. And given Texas's history of a very closed door and inaccessible process, it's really urgent that our communities start vocalizing their needs and demands for public input. Next slide, please. Oh, I guess, yeah, how does redistricting affect my community? So how does it affect us in the everyday? What are the real effects of gerrymandering? I would generally say that it hurts democracy. And I really love the quote that Lydia shared on the back of her shirt, that with gerrymandering, democracy isn't really there. Gerrymandering hurts democracy because it's a tool used to control the voice of the people. It means decisions and outcomes are planned before you even get to cast your ballot. It takes away the choice from the voter and puts that power into the hands of politicians. So politicians get to choose their voters instead of us getting to choose our politicians. And for gerrymandered communities, it means that they won't get to petition their needs or grievances to their government because they've been made almost obsolete in the process. It's like they've lost a war before they even got the first battle. Personally, I guess this is on the next slide. Personally, I've lived in heavily gerrymandered communities. This graph right here shows an outline of Travis County, where I went to school. That's where Austin, Texas is. And you can see all of these different congressional districts just kind of taking a stab at Austin, taking a piece here, taking a piece there. And I want to note that where all of these districts converge, that's around the University of Texas. And that's not an accident. That is very much intentional. And that's a method of suppressing the youth vote. I lived in a neighborhood called West Campus, and to walk to actual UT, I just crossed Guadalupe Street and I was crossing congressional lines. My friends who lived just 10 minutes north of campus because of cheaper housing lived in a different congressional district. So out of my class, it was more than likely that all of us who lived within like a 5-mile radius of each other were in 3 different congressional districts. And like I said, this is not an accident. This is on purpose, and this is how it manifests itself in real life. So that means that the youth vote around Austin doesn't get to coalesce and bring up the policies or the issues that they are very focused on. Things like gun reform, the environment, student debt, all of that had to be divided into all of these different districts that would take them to all these different places across the state. I guess for just some quick immediate steps on if any of this stuff got you interested or got you feeling like you want to participate, the number one thing that you can do right now before September 30th is fill out your census. You can go to 2020census.gov, and if you've already filled it, good job, congratulations. And I urge you to do what I've done with some of my family members. I reached out and I've said, do you know, or have you done the census? Has everyone around you done the census? Have you asked? Make sure everyone around you is doing it. And since I'm the child of immigrants, I remember I had to do it in 2010 and had no idea what I was doing. In 2020, I once again did it for my parents, and I can promise you this online version was really easy. It was really fast. And for the Latinx community out there, there is not a citizenship question. So you don't have to fear anything about like any immigration status affecting your response in the census. It is safe, and I urge you to respond to it. Another thing that you could do if you've already filled out the census is find out what districts you live in. You might not know what your congressional district is or what your state house or state senate district is. So there's govtrack.us where you can find out your congressional district, and you can decide for yourself whether that district truly represents your community. You can also go to house.texas.gov to find your representative, your state senator and your state rep, and then once again decide, this district that's drawn around me, does this represent me? Why are my friends who live in the neighborhood next to mine in a different one? Like, what's really going on here? So that's one really good tool for understanding how redistricting and gerrymandering affects your community. And just as a last plug for Texas Civil Rights, the organization I'm with, last week we did launch an email action that allows you, Texans, to email the Senate and the House committee leaders who are supposed to be doing these public input hearings directly, and ask them to resume these hearings as soon as possible before redistricting starts again come the next session. But that's what I had to share on Redistricting 101. I hope it made sense and that it got you motivated to go out there and do something.
Oh, thank you for that, Miguel. That was actually a lot of knowledge that we don't necessarily talk about, or it's necessarily provided to us, and I think that's a lot of useful information that could go a long way for us, and help us again reach out to somebody, right? And with that, we're gonna go take a quick vibe check. We just want to see how y'all doing out there, viewers. How y'all doing right now? Thank you, Miguel. Again, it was great. How do y'all feel about this knowledge? Everybody watching at home. We're doing good. Y'all ready to go take the census right now, or we're gonna call our family members to go take a census, or check on? Or what were you doing, Miguel?
Oh, I was just saying that it's kind of scary, some of the information. I felt like it was really heavy stuff, but it's real, and it's what's going on, and it's what's been going on.
And I was talking to pertaining with how you called your family, right? You called up your family members.
All of my siblings who live in different places, my parents, my aunts and uncles, my friends from high school, people on my contact list that I hadn't reached out to in years. I just wanted to say, hey, hope you're doing well in 2020. I wanted to remind you, it's also a census year, and getting counted is really important. The deadline is September 30th. Please do this soon. If you moved within the year, the census asks for data from April 1st. So give the information from where you were at on April 1st, 2020, and send it out really quick, 5-10 minutes.
Awesome. And also, since we're in COVID and we can't really reach out with our relatives or hang out with our relatives, right? Because like Lydia, she said she had, how many children did you say you had, Lydia?
I raised 7 children. I have 22 grandkids and 8 great-grandchildren. And I've been lecturing them about the census.
That's a Latino household right there, right? Or a Latino sized family. We love to have big families. So why not reach out and, build that contact with them, make a connection, and remind them to take part of the census, right?
That's right. Because, when you think about the census, one way that helps is, would you want to live with something for 10 years of your life that you could not change? And that's what the census is. Once those numbers are finalized, that's it for the next 10 years. So whatever money your particular community may need is dependent upon that number that was done. You will say back in 2020, in say 2025, your community needs something, but there's not enough money because it wasn't accurately counted in 2020. That's what it is. So picture yourself 10 years from now, what needs you might have in 10 years, and whether or not that census data is going to be able to take care of the needs of your community. Because chances are, even if everyone is counted, you know how money changes value. There's never enough to begin with, right? and then you add the fact that you weren't counted, that makes it even harder, right?
And like they say, with great power comes great responsibility, right? So we
Absolutely.
have to make sure we get counted. And that might be a little bit scary for us because she said, remember, it's a 10-year period that's going to be affecting us. So make sure everybody's counted, make sure everybody's getting out. And you viewers, make sure you get out there and make sure you are counted as well. How about if you haven't done the census, take time to go fill it out right now.
Take out the phone. You can do it on the phone, right?
Yeah, it's that simple. Something so
phone.
simple, right? Can carry so much power.
2020census.gov, you're there.
Yeah.
Awesome. Right on, Miguel. Thank you for that. Telling us where we got to go. All right. And again, thank y'all for being here. I think we talked a lot of, with how gerrymandering affects redistricting affects gerrymandering, right? Because redistricting can be a good thing, and then again, it can be go in a different way, right? And again, our community have so much power, and like you said, it's not by mistake that they're trying to take away that power from us. They do that strategically, right? I like to say I'm a chess player, right? And I like to do things 2 steps ahead of everybody else. So they're they're like, oh, the Latinos are about to become the majority. How can we prevent them from gaining so much power, right? Hopefully it's not that cynical, but we've seen that there's evidence that it does pertain, and this played out that way. And I am gonna ask y'all a little bit of questions. And y'all ready to start our panel? All right. All right. And here's a question for both of y'all. All right, let's start off with Lydia. Miguel, we're gonna let you get a quick break. Okay. Lydia, what kind of work have you or your community been doing to get the word out about redistricting?
Our group has been in existence since 2017. Okay. So the first thing we did was educate ourselves. And then we started going out and talking to groups in the community about exactly what Miguel did just now, explaining what redistricting is, how the role of the census in that, and then the practice of gerrymandering to redistrict. And this year in particular, we have been working with our members to look at their communities and learn how to describe them, both geographically and in terms of the composition of the community and what the needs of that community are. And let me tell you why that's important. When they go to draw these maps, they have software, right, that they do it with, which is why gerrymandering is so lethal now because of the software. It can literally draw a line down a street and carve you either in or out of a district, okay? Then you couple that with they meet behind closed doors and they don't tell anybody what's going on. So when the map comes out, it's the first time anybody sees it is when it goes to the floor to be considered to pass as a bill, right, to the Texas House and Senate, all right?
Right.
So what we need at that point is to have people know their communities really well to say, now, wait a minute, that map is dividing us and splitting us, and that's not right. And you can pick up the phone and call someone and say, look, you need to go and talk about this and get them to change it, right? Talk to your representative, talk to your senator, and tell them that's not going to help us, right? So we're working with people to understand the boundaries of their community, the interests of their community, the causes that they need to fight for, right? And in addition to that, we are also preparing them to give testimony. Like Miguel was talking, the testimony has ceased, but we are hoping that it will start up again. I live in Fort Bend County, and my county was not heard, right? And my county had a 37% change in population from 2010. Most of it people of color and minorities, right? And so we have a very vested interest in making sure that our county is not split up into 1,000 little pieces like Austin has been, right? And like Houston has been, right? So that's what we're doing now. And we're also preparing people to be ready come January the 12th to start knocking on their elected officials' doors and phones and emails and Twitter and Instagram and everything about a fair redistricting process. So that's what we're doing.
Oh, that's awesome. I love it. You know, we first have to find the knowledge so we could then be prepared to, so we can talk about the issues that mainly pertain to our community. I love
You
it.
know, one of the things that it's hard for us as ordinary citizens to understand is that there is a difference between the people at the state level that represent you and the people in Washington. The people in Washington have earmuffs over their ears that they use very effectively, okay? The people that represent you at the state level, at the county level, at the city level, they are not, they don't wear those earmuffs, okay? They are much more likely to respond to you if you have done your homework and you know how to talk to them, right? And
Yes.
that's our role, is to help people learn all of those things, because folks, we have a lot of power. The issue is we haven't been using it, right? And now is the time to use it. One of the things that really makes my heart fill up is seeing you young people taking these steps to be heard, because it is desperately needing. And the reality is, I'm 72 years old, right? The ones who are going to be deeply impacted by what happens in 2021 in that legislative session is you all. You are the ones that are going to have to live with it. You are the ones that are in the planning stages and in the building stages of your adulthood and what you want to accomplish, right? So this is the time to stand up and let us hear your voices and speak up in the right places, right?
I love that. I love that. Thank you for motivating us and getting us fired up to get out there. And, you know, we're good on social medias, right?
Yes, you are. You are awesome on that.
So why not use that as our political advantage, right? Definitely. Thank you. Thank you for all that you do and your organization does for us and helps us out, right? And Miguel, and also right before I forget, a little earlier, I was so excited to dive into the conversation. Listeners, if y'all have any questions y'all want to ask these wonderful panelists, and please comment down below and drop it down for us. All right. All right. And Miguel, I also have that same question for you. What kind of work have you or your community been doing to get the word out about the redistricting?
Yeah, so I'm specifically the redistricting outreach fellow at the Texas Civil Rights Project, but I'm pretty new to the Texas Civil Rights Project. I onboarded in June. But internally, we do have our own campaign, which, to echo Lydia, was heavily revolved around getting our communities, getting individuals in communities that are more than likely going to be gerrymandered to participate in the public input hearings. And this came through several ways. We were doing in-person trainings. We have a website, mapsbythepeople.org, that kind of gives a background on what redistricting is in Texas, what the public input hearing process is, and it up until March had the list date for all of the hearings that were going to happen, but then were subsequently postponed or canceled. And so that's one of the other efforts that we're doing. Alongside that, we're also now, because of COVID-19, trying to engage as many people as possible through social media and use that to reach people and mobilize them in the best ways that we can. If that means creating an email action, then we will do that. If that means creating training modules for online consumption, that is also something that we're doing and stuff. So it's all about training the communities that we're working with, giving them the right tools, like Lydia said, because this is quite honestly really policy heavy stuff. And it comes down to a lot of like election code and the history of gerrymandering and knowing how the district lines are drawn and where they're cut up. So it's giving the people the tools that they need to voice their own concerns and opinions. This is not just something that TCRP really cares about, but it's also something that I really care about, just because it seems like everywhere I've lived in Texas, I've been in the middle of a gerrymandered community or district, like my time at UT, but even growing up in Stafford, I'm a part of Texas 22, but the other half of my small town of 17,000 people is a part of Texas 9, and the district line cuts in the middle of some of my closest friends' neighborhood. And there's a reason for why these district lines kind of dip in, dip out, and make their way around like specific neighborhoods or specific houses in neighborhoods sometimes. So this is just something that's really personal. And I think getting people to understand the personal aspect of gerrymandering in redistricting really does help with voicing the concerns of their community.
Yeah, definitely. I also see the redistricting gerrymandering going on in here in Dallas, right? Again, I'm from Dallas. Highland Park and University Park, which are the rich areas, get cut off by my old neighborhood where I used to live at, which is, I would say, probably like the most Latino heavy populated part of Dallas. And we just cut off like by a street, we don't get the resources. We don't get, you know, you can see the difference. You can see the difference. A lake separates everything, right? And again, it's just that physical border or boundary that makes a difference, right? And you did give us a lot of examples, Lydia. I would like to ask you, can you give us an example of gerrymandering in your district?
Yes, if you all will show the slides that I prepared. Um, the the other one, Leslie, the overview, not that one, the other one, that one. This, believe it or not, is from Austin to Houston. Okay. You see that 35 that looks like a skinny ladle of some sort on the left-hand side in light brown? That goes from San Antonio to Austin. That's CD 35. It's been gerrymandered in so many different ways, right? Over the years. 35 is one of the most gerrymandered districts in our state. And if you look at 10 in the blue, that is also goes to Austin, and it comes to some of my friends' houses here in the West Harris County area. If you look at the green area, that is 22. That is what Miguel was talking about, right? Okay, now the next slide. Any of them will do. Okay, this is Fort Bend County. These are congressional districts. The other one was congressional districts too. And they're the people that go to Washington, okay? So look at Fort Bend County. You see the pink? That is part of West Harris County and Fort Bend County. And then you have 22, which goes from my area into Pasadena, which is on the east side of 45, Highway 45, if any of you have ever driven that area. That is how far apart it goes, all right? The next one. And here is Harris County. It's divided like a pinwheel. If you look at that, right? And there, okay. So some of these districts look like this because they were carving out a minority district because they were willing to give Harris County a minority district or two, okay? Because it's the party in power that wants to stay in power that does the gerrymandering. That's one thing. And it's the politician that wants to stay in power also that contributes to the gerrymandering. Okay. So you end up with districts that look like this, that make no sense in terms of uh, keeping communities together, right? So this is the best visual representation that we can give you of how these lines are drawn. And like you were saying, Fernando, bodies of water are part of the geographical landscape of a community. And they're often an easy way to divide people, right? But when they're sitting in Austin drawing these maps through software that indicates population, then these bodies of water become moot because what they're looking at is figuring out how to disperse the population to either give them representation or take away representation.
Yes, definitely. And we kind of all of us dipped into this next question I had for y'all, which is who benefits from gerrymandering and who does it affect? We all kind of said a little bit about it.
Well, definitely the party in power benefits from gerrymandering.
Mhm.
Um, Lobbyists benefit from gerrymandering. Um, Politicians get reelected many times because of gerrymandering, right? Um, I have an interesting chart that I tried to put behind me, but it's not big enough for you to see. And it's a visual representation of how things work. The Princeton University's researchers did a study of public opinion over 20 years. Okay, they took all these public opinion polls and they analyzed them to see what the public was interested in, what caused to make it a law. All right. And then they looked at the laws that were passed. And the theory was that if public opinion was very high about a law, then the law would pass, right? But guess what? They found that if public opinion was low about a law, it had a 30% chance of passing. Okay. If public opinion was high in favor of a law, it had a 30% chance of passing. All right. The reason is that there are many reasons, but one of them is that when a district is gerrymandered, the politician is assured that they're going to get elected, so they don't have to listen to the voters. So who loses? The voters do. Okay, so that's the bottom line. The citizens of the community are the ones who lose.
Okay, cool. And thank you for that info. And again, we could see it right here in Texas. We see how that affects and one of the things I always tell a lot of people that I really dislike about our representation is that sometimes land is more valuable than a person, and that to me I think is very very messed up, and definitely not how we should be doing representation in our government. And Miguel, I have a question for you. What are common myths or misconceptions around redistricting?
Yeah, so I guess that there's one that I have. If Lydia has another, she can definitely tag along. But I think one misconception, or I guess myth that people have of redistricting, is that it's something that just matters once every 10 years after the census, and that after it's done, it's over and we won't have to worry about this for the next 10 years. But I'd like to echo what Lydia said, and remind people that this is going to affect political power and representation in Texas for the next 10 years. So whatever happens in redistricting will be our political reality. We will have to live with the results and the outcomes of redistricting every single day until we once again have the chance to be counted and voice to the state legislature what redistricting is going to look like. So to the young audience who might be registering to vote for the first time, who might be participating in their first election for the first time. I know for me, this is only my second presidential election and I'm super excited about it. But to think about redistricting, it's something that it's going to affect us. Me, I'm 24 right now. These are the districts that I'm going to live with until I'm 34. And a lot of things could happen to me between 24 and 34. Could start a family, buy a home. How is that going to affect the funds that go to education, the infrastructure that's built around me? So it's like all of these things that we might not be thinking about in the present, but are definitely going to be real come down the road. And if we don't act now, we can find ourselves in a situation where politicians have once again insulated themselves from the concerns of the voting public.
Yeah, Lydia, do you have any common myths or misconceptions?
Yeah, and that is that it's always going to happen. It will always exist. All right. And that we can't do anything about it. Right. Well, the reality is that even though there are some scholars who say that gerrymandering was around during the time of the Greeks. Okay. So it's a human foible, right? To want to maintain power regardless of what you do, right? So it's going to crop up, right? Given that our country was founded on the principle of fair representation, right? And gerrymandering is not fair representation.
Nope.
So people who use gerrymandering for their advantage, but it's not because gerrymandering is a part of our democracy. It is not. Our democracy is based on fair representation. And it's also based on citizen participation, right? You have to protect your representation. If you don't, look at what happened to us, right? Just 4 years ago, right? I am very quick to tell you that as a quote, wise adult, I sat back and thought our country would always be the same, right? I voted, but I wasn't active in doing all of these things that I needed to do, right? And I fell asleep on the wheel, right? And now look at all of the work that we're having to do to correct that error that was made before now, right? So don't make the mistakes that my age group made, right? Make some new ones, but not those, okay?
I was muted. I was muted. I said I was gonna say I like that. I really love it. Our generation or the youth really, we're all about trendsetters, right? Why not start that new trend, right? Start something different. Take that knowledge that we've got from y'all, from our older generations. That take that stuff we learned from y'all and apply it in a different way. One of the biggest things I like to say is history tends to repeat itself if we let it happen. If we let it happen, right? But if we're able to change that, that the projectile or the direction it's going, we can make a difference. We could really make a big difference. All right. And I got one more question before we got to get out of here. And this goes to both of y'all. How can we help? What is one thing we can start doing today to make sure we pull up for our community?
I can let Lydia take it really quickly.
Okay, one thing you can do is join us, right, at Texans Against Gerrymandering, and help us, right? The second thing you can do is we're looking for student advisors, young people advisors to our group to give us input in how to structure the message so that the younger generation hears the message better. So if you're interested in volunteering to help us with that effort, get in touch with me. I believe you're going to show at the end a way to contact me. Contact me. Let me know you're interested in that, and believe me, we will be indebted to you forever. Uh, but get involved, right? Learn
Definitely.
more about the subject and visit our websites so that you can learn some more. We both have information on the website. You just click, watch a short video, and man, you get more information that you thought you needed.
I definitely agree with that. And I guess really quickly, I just want to tell Lydia that I really loved the don't make same old mistakes, make new mistakes. I feel like that's going to be my new mantra now. But I want to echo the same that thank you to everyone who came onto this call and this Facebook Live and took some time to learn. And I urge you to not let this be the only time you learn about redistricting and gerrymandering in Texas. Let this just be the start of this big journey to fight to correct the wrongs that our state has already imposed on us. And so just like Lydia said, visit the websites of both of our organizations. Texas Civil Rights is txcivilrights.org. On there, you can learn more about what we've done and what we're trying to do moving forward before session starts and even once session starts. This can be like leaving your email to hear updates, going to mapsbythepeople.org to find out more information and educate yourself. If you want to participate in the email action that we have going on, it's on the front page of our website, txcivilrights.org, and it'll be right there. If you're at all interested in somehow participating in the public input hearings that will take place sometime in the future, please reach out to me if you want to know how to form testimony, what that's like, how can you be a voice for your community. These are the type of people we're definitely looking for and trying to share amongst our community and get involved, because it's you people, Texans like you, who hold the power to change your state. And the more active you are, the more we can change the state. For the youth out there who are trying to register to vote or figure out what's going on with everything, I want to spotlight our coalition partners who have helped us with our redistricting work. Move Texas, Texas Rising at the Texas Freedom Network, who have amazing voter registration programs. If you want to figure out how to do it safely from home or tell a friend how to do it, you can visit their websites. Also, Move Texas, Texas Rising with the Texas Freedom Network. And as a youth, let's create this culture of civic engagement and stop sitting at home and watching all these things happen, but really be out there and being the catalyst for change.
I love that, Miguel. Thank you for that. I'm with you. You know, I'm already pumped up to go. Well, I already am a catalyst to change, but even with this, I got even more motivated to want to get out there and do some more. Right. And we did say we're taking questions from the audience. Here, let me pull up the question. So Ashley Segura asks, "What's the best way to figure out what district you're in?"
Uh, there is a really easy way. Go to commoncause.org, and up at the top, they have a little link for you to find out who represents you, okay? And the reason I recommend that website is because some of us are split by zip code, the last 4 digits, right? And most tools don't take that into account, but Common Cause does. They have it to where that little 4-digit thing makes the big difference, so that you can look up who represents you. By the way, there is a place called whorepresentsme.org you can go to, right? But they have a problem with the zip code when you're split. Like mine is split, and they give me the 2 choices, and I have to figure out which one is mine, right? If you're a registered voter, your voter registration card will show you what your different district numbers are. So look at your voter registration card, and that will tell you also.
Awesome. And again, I thank y'all everybody for tuning in. Is there any last remarks? Lydia, that you might want to?
I just want to say I really enjoyed this, and I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to participate with you. And I look forward to seeing you on the Zoom trail at some time again, right? So stay tuned because our community has a lot to offer to the world, and we need to take advantage of that. So I hope to see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been awesome to being part of this with you as well, and thank you for all that knowledge you gave us and empowering us, the youth. Right, Miguel? Do you have anything you would like to? Any last words?
Sure. Like Lydia said, thank you to Jolt for inviting me to share a bit about redistricting and what our organizations have been doing along these lines. I want to say thank you to all of the viewers for tuning in. And my email's there. You can also find me on the Texas Civil Rights page. And if you want to find me on social media, because I'm really active with all of this stuff on social media also, feel free to send me like a request on Instagram, Twitter. I'll definitely follow back. This is all about creating a community and getting all of us to participate in what's going on in our state.
Definitely. I mean, Jolt is a statewide youth-led and youth-active organization, right? We are here to empower the youth and create the future leaders of tomorrow. And thank y'all again for being part of this and tuning in. Thank you for all the viewers for joining us. I hope you have a wonderful day and reach out to us. Come on, we want to see new faces. We want to see the youth inspired and ready to make the change that we really desirably need in our not only in our county, our state, but also to the national level as well. Thank y'all, and y'all have a wonderful night.